Do you want to learn how to track objects that disappear out of sight, or maybe just a fast and reliable way to do two-point tracking, or perhaps just see a cool way to replace street signs? Well, in this tutorial we'll tackle 3 real-world examples. First, tracking objects after they leave the frame, then we'll attach people to other people, and this may help you with some important nutrition decisions. Finally, we'll replace a giant street sign at London's O2 Peninsula, turning a perfectly respectable ad into something far more important, our favorite band. As always, motion tracking is really a two-step dance. First, you collect the data and apply it, and then comes the compositing part, making everything actually look believable. So join me as we track, stabilize, attach, replace, and generally pretend this was all super easy. Here we go. So this is the final result. We want to track the car going into and out of the frame, as well as put it over here inside this heads-up display. Our starting point is this simplified comp, and I've already created the target that we want to attach to, but first let's track the car. So I'll right click on the car, and then I'll choose track and stabilize, and let's go with track motion. This is going to bring us into the layers panel, and I'm just going to navigate to where the car is in the frame, so over here, and then I'll click to select all the trackers, wait for the double-headed arrow plus the black arrow, which will allow me to move the entire group, and then I'll zoom into this point so I can tell After Effects what I want to capture. So I'll move the entire thing, and then because I know the car moved to the left, I'll hold down the command key. This will be of course Control on Windows, which will allow me to drag the search area unsymmetrically. So this is your first tip today. Then I'll do the same thing for the tracking area. So this is what After Effects will try to capture. Something along those lines should be okay. And then I'll feed the viewer, and let's just track forward. So it will go through the entire frames until the car comes out of the frame, which is going to, of course, lose the tracker. So let's just find out where was the last good tracking frame, somewhere over here. And then I'll press U to see the keyframes. And I'm just going to click on this keyframe and then right click, and I can actually select the following keyframes and then just remove them. You can, of course, just marquee around the keyframes over here if you don't want to use this second tip that I'm throwing at you. And then we need to extrapolate using the same velocity and position before and after the object is on screen. So first, I'll create a new null object. I'll name it TD for tracking data. I'll make sure to edit the target and select this null object that I've created, and then I'll apply the X and Y dimensions to this tracking data. Now I'll press U to see the keyframes which are on the position value, and I'm going to option click on the stopwatch and add an expression. The expression should be loop in, and then inside the parentheses I'll add a quotation mark and I'll say offset. So it's going to use the data that it has over here at the beginning, and it's just going to offset the tracker. As you can see, it works for this end. For the other end, we need to add the loop out with the same thing. You can either go with continue or offset. In this case, it's going to give you the same result. But if I'll approve, you can see that the null object lost its way. And this is because we actually need to subtract the value, which are the good keyframes that we've collected from this expression. So now if I reselect the null object, you can see that it will continue to move in the same speed and the same velocity. And this means that we can just bring it to, let's say, over here, where the target is above the car. And we can use the parent pquip to parent it to the tracking data. And this looks like this, which solves the biggest issue here. Now I'm going to collapse all the information. Let's go to the middle, and I'll click on the shy icon to show you that I have a few other things here in this composition. For example, this compass, which I've placed over here. And if we want, we can marry this compass to the same tracking data. So we can do it from this point, and because parenting is sensitive to the time, it's going to move from this point onward, which is something that you can do. Or of course, because this is an individual layer, we can just move it to anywhere we want. So we can actually put it, let's say, underneath this layer, and both of them are going to move in concert. Which is lovely, but I think that for this purpose, I'm just going to undo a couple of times and just leave this as an element over here, because I have few more things that I want to add to this scene. And everything here is in this cyan group, so I can select all the members, then enable the visibility. And as you can see, we have some sort of an animation that I've already created. And over here inside this tracking area, I want to place a magnified version of the same car, but this one shouldn't move. So in order to do it, I'm going to grab the car layer as well as the tracking data null, and I'll copy them to the clipboard. Then let's hop inside this viewfinder comp, then go to the beginning and paste those two objects. And in order to make the car be in the center of the screen without any motion, we need to press A to see the anchor point and connect the position tracking data to the anchor point, because basically stabilizing is the opposite of tracking. So if I connect the property pquip from the anchor point to the position of the tracking data layer, and then move this layer, let's say over here, we can see that it is in the middle of the screen, and all we need to do now is press S to see the scale, and then just scale it. And we actually need to put it inside this main circle here. So I'm just going to drop it underneath, and then I'm just going to change the position, perhaps scale it even more. And of course, we can also add some synthetic sharpening. And this will add a high pass filtering, but it will work nicely with our example. All we need to do is use the track matte in order to make it inside this main circle. So I'll duplicate this main circle, take everything from here and make sure that the fill is activated. And now I can rename it matte and take the track matte and use this as a matte. And this way, it's going to stay within this area. Now, towards the end, because we are running out of data, we need to hide this, and we'll do it using a solid. We'll call it noise. And then let's go to effects and presets and look for bed TV. You have three options here. We'll start with this weak one. And I think I'm going to just take away the Venetian blinds, and maybe just raise the amount of noise, as well as change the color of the layer, because it's basically going to react to the color. And then what I need to do is, of course, matte this layer as well. So I'll use the same layer to matte it. And then let's just check when we need to make it visible. So somewhere over here, I'll create an opacity keyframe by pressing Option Shift T. Set it to 0%, and then maybe move 10 frames and set it to 100. Perhaps we need to just tidy up those two keyframes. Let's revisit this comp and see how this works. And this is how you track objects that goes into and out of the frame, as well as use the same data in order to magnify a specific area that you want to focus on. And for the second example, we're going to do this devil-angel situation when it's really difficult to decide which one to pick. What do you think she'll do? Going for the right one. All right. So let me show you how you can quickly attach this fellow along with another copy of him on the opposite shoulder, and then composite both of them so they will melt into the shot. Actually, not really melt, but you know what I mean. So for that, I'm going to use a couple of effects from this Red Giant VFX category, or actually family of plugins. You can get them from the Max on One subscription, or you can just purchase the individual one. These are really great tools, especially when it comes to tracking. And let me show you how much time you can save by using the Spot Clone Tracker. Now, the purpose of this effect is to remove part from the scene. So let's say that I'm going to take this area and I'm going to sample something from here, and it's going to clean it up. It's great to clean tracker markers, etc. But there's also a tracker only mode. So I'll enable it, And this will allow me to take the tracker, and I'm just going to put it over here on top of the shoulder. And I'll check export scale and rotation. And I can also change the spot size if I need it to be bigger to encapsulate more detail. And this is better and faster than using the 2-point tracker method inside After Effects. Let me show you how this works. I'm going to analyze forward, and you can see the keyframes are being written here. And it's really working nice. And the thing that I like about it, I'm not accelerating the recording, by the way, is that I don't need to go into an isolated layer panel. I can do everything within the comp panel. So let's just wait a couple of moments until everything is going to be finalized. And once we have the final result, I'll zoom out and I'll click on Create Null. And this is going to create a null object, which you can, of course, name anything you like. So I'm just going to leave the PSR for position, scale, and rotation and call it, let's say, left or left S for left shoulder. And then all I need to do is just connect this guy to this tracker. So I'll select this layer and I'm just going to marry it to this left tracker. And as you can see, it is now pinned to the shoulder of this lady. Let's do this again for the opposite shoulder. So I'm going to return back to the effect. I'll leave everything as is, but this time I'll move these targets to the opposite side. And of course, I'll analyze. So I'll need to analyze backwards because I was in the middle of the scene here. Actually, not in the middle, but 1 second in. And then I'll do the rest of the frames. And again, I'm not accelerating it because I do want you to see how fast this goes. It's practically real time, much faster and much more accurate than using any other point tracker method that I know inside After Effects. All right, so again, a few more moments, and then we are going to create a null for it. And if you want to be organized, let's just quickly rename this one right. And then I'm just going to be on top of the do, which is this layer over here. And I'll parent it to the right null object. And as you can see, both of them are working really nice. All we need to do now is just quickly do the compositing task. So I'll select the don't layer and I'll apply the key light effect. And quickly I'll use the color picker and key out the green from this video. By the way, inside the Red Giant VFX, you also have a 3D keyer named Primate Keyer, which can and probably will yield better results. But for now, I'll settle with the key light effect. Then I'll zoom in so I can see it a little bit better. I'll move this guy down so he'll be just on top of the shoulder, and I want to bring some sort of a contact shadow here. So I'll switch off the visibility of those trackers so we can concentrate on what we are doing here. And in order to do it, I'll apply another effect. This is the shadow effect from the same family. So I'll put those 2 pins underneath on his legs. And then I'll take this one, and I think I want to put it somewhere over here. So the shadow will be more or less on the shoulder of the girl. Now, obviously, we can tweak the settings so we can blur the shadow a little bit, change the opacity. And also, let's just zoom in so we can see what we are doing. Scroll down and change the blending mode to behind. So the shadow is actually going to be behind the image here. And it's just going to go with everything automatically attached to this fellow. Brilliant. All we need to do now is a quick levels adjustment, I think, just to marry everything together. Play a little bit with the output black. And finally, let's add a Gaussian blur, which comes with a value of 25. I think it's just too much, so I'll reduce it to 10. And this is it. For the other guy, the one that will encourage her to eat the apple, I applied the same 4 effects. Let's just enable them. And as you can see, both of them are now sitting nicely on her shoulders. What we want to do right now is just bring them over in an interesting fashion. So I have a few smoke blasts here. Each one of them is with a black background. So we can quickly use the unmult effect, which is going to just take away all of the black pixels. And at the beginning of each one of them, we're going to connect them to the appropriate tracker. So this one needs to be for the left. And then there is another one over here. This one also needs to have the unmalt effect. But this one needs to be connected, of course, to the right area. So we're just going to move the blast to the correct position and then connect it to the right null object, to the tracking data. And then finally, we have another one. Let's just apply the unmalt effect. This one will make the left one disappear. So again, let's just make sure it is located in the correct position, just above this guy, and connect it to the left tracker. And that's it. Everything is now connected, and we can preview the scene in full frame to see how this looks. It was super fast and quick to both track it as well as composite those little guys on her shoulders, as well as match the colors, the rotation, the scale. Everything works almost like magic. Now you just need to decide which one you want to eat. Probably the cake, right? We know how this ends. Last but not least, my favorite band, Squeeze, with a very special guest, Billy Bragg, are at the O2 London this November. I really liked it, and I've already seen both of them. But to be honest, before Squeeze and Billy Bragg, it was just this Virgin Media poster. This is the original shot. So I want to show you quickly how to replace this sign, but first let's just have a look at what I've started to create. So this is the official poster, and I really like this logo. This is almost scream, please animate me. So first I tried using AI to do this animation. I basically just captured the logo, changed the colors to black and white, and plug it into the topmost 4 engines. And this is what I got. I asked to animate the lines. I was really specific, and hopefully you can judge if this is to your liking. So I think we can do better. And because this is the situation, what I did, I actually just created the logo inside Illustrator and placed it on top of this Photoshop document. So I removed the original one. And now we can quickly right click on this AI document. Now notice this is of course not AI, but Adobe Illustrator. This is the meaning of this AI. Under the create options, we'll check create shapes from vector layer, which is going to give us those outlines. And then we can select the contents here. And from this add menu, I'll add the trim path. Now the trim path is under everything, notice, so I can change the end here. Let's start with the value of 0 and then move to maybe 4 and 10 seconds and then just bring everything to 100. We're also going to select the word and then press F9 to easy ease the keyframes, and then I'll grab both handles here and give it a little bit of a special treatment. So this looks like this, which is nice, but I think we can make it even better. And this is because if I open up group number 1 under path, we have access to the individual strokes. So we can change the order, we can reverse the path direction. To make it easy, I'll double click on the name of the timeline, which is going to maximize it. And then when the layer is selected, I'll type in path for the index search here, and I'll reverse the path for every other one of them. Now, there isn't an automatic method to do it. You actually need to do it like I'm showing you over here, which is not too bad. And now if I'll bring back the entire interface, clear this search term and preview it, we'll have a much nicer animation, something that right now AI still couldn't deliver. While we are here, let's select the background layer, duplicate it, and mask just the part of this sign. I want to create some neon flickering sign. I'll make sure to remove all the transparency using another instance of the unmalt effect. And then inside the effects and presets, we can look for, let's start with VHS to apply the VHS flickering effect, which I really like. It gives this nice illusion of something really old and flickery. And we can also try to add some blinking looping effect. This is just going to make this sign a little bit more interesting to look at. So something along those lines. You can play with those values here, but for now, let's return back to the main problem here, how to replace this sign. To do it, I'll return back to the tracker panel and I'll track the camera. And After Effects is going to analyze the shot in the background, and after a moment or two, it comes back with this solution. We can scrub the timeline to see how this works, but I'm just going to click over here in order to select this area to create a target around it, and then right click and select Create Solid and Camera. And this is going to create our track solid, which in most cases is not exactly what we want because we want to replace it with a bigger image. By default, this is not big enough, but we can make it work quite easily. So the first action is to go to the layer menu and then choose track solid 1 settings, which is going to show us the size of this layer. We actually want to make it comp size. Then I'll click OK, and then I'll just press S in order to isolate the scale and start to scale this to more or less the size of the poster. It can be a little bit bigger or smaller. Once I am in the area, I'll add the power pin effect, which is going to give us 4 points that we need to accurately place at the correct edges. So I'll hide the visibility so I can see exactly what I'm doing. I'll drag the top left pin, and I probably should just zoom in. So I'll do the best, most accurate work possible. So this is it for this one. And then I'll pan to the other side, take this pin and place it on the opposite side. I'll scroll down, and by scrolling, of course, I'm holding down the space bar and panning to the bottom side of this comp. And then I'll do the same thing. It's not the most interesting description in the world, but I'll do my best to give you some narration while you see me do this very hard labor. Now we can bring back the visibility of this layer, and we can hop back into the project panel, select this layer, hold down the Option key, and then just replace it with our Squeeze Show logo. Now, if we want, we can return back to the effect controls, press Command-Shift-H to hide everything so we can actually see how this works. And if there's a need, you can open up the expansion and play with the bottom, top, left, and right, just to make sure that we can see the edges of the frame here, which is what I'll do. And because I'm doing it, I'm actually revealing a little bit of redness underneath. This is the color from the Virgin Ed. So we need to make sure we compensate for that. And in order to do so, let's select the main video and apply the advanced spill suppressor. Make sure to use the ultra setting. And again, I'll need to switch off the visibility of this poster so I can actually sample the correct color from the scene. And then I'll switch it back on, and all the red is gone from the poster, which means that it's also removing unnecessary areas here. So we need to mask the area that we need. Super easy. I'm just going to grab a rectangle mask, and I'm just going to do something along those lines. Press F to feather it. And then I'll select the layer in the timeline, press E to show the effect, open up the advanced spill suppressor, and for the compositing options, I'll click the plus icon to tell the effect that it needs to use the mask in order to work. And depending on your shot, you may need to actually animate the mask path, which is what I'll do over here. So I'll quickly add another keyframe to cover the area that I want to hide over here as well, and this should do. So let's maximize the frame and then preview our really quick replacement of this poster. Of course, we can also match the colors. So returning back to the poster, let's add the levels effect and play with the output black to match the colors from the scene. Maybe also the output white so it won't be so bright. I'm eyeballing it, but of course you can do even a more accurate job. And that's it. This is our result. Using the camera tracker and scaling up the solid layer so we'll have all the pixels we need, we've managed to create a very convincing digital signage. Now, if you want to learn more about motion tracking, click on this link because I've curated a special playlist just for you. More tracking, more compositing, and more tiny digital lies. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.